Reasons to be Cheerful, Part 1. I've got a look at the version 3 bolt action rulebook, kindly given to me by John at Lost Ark Games to have a look at and see what some of the changes are. The Eccentric Man YouTube channel is kindly sponsored by Lost Ark Games in Stevenage. You can find them online and at 29 Marketplace, Stevenage. Pop in and say hello. Well, the version 3 handbook, the mini version, is a rather chunky tome with 320 pages, including the bump and information about World War II, right through to the index. And it has got a very nice index included in the book. And that's always a good sign. And I can put your mind at rest. Most of the rules, in fact the majority of the rules, have not changed. So it's still the same bolt action, but with some tweaks to the various phases. So certainly firing, army selection. They have done some nice little tweaks to try and get rid of some of the quirks that were in version 2. Let's have a start then. Let's start and look at pinning. And pinning has undergone a bit of a change. And again, you get pinned from shooting, much the same as you did before. 7 rifles, you're only going to get 1 pin. If you're shot at by another unit, you are going to get another pin. However, when it comes to shooting, you only count 1 pin, and it's -1 for shooting. Not -8 if you've got 8 pins and you are regular. So that's a change. The pinning is also different when it comes to rallying. All negative modifiers are ignored when you rally, as before. However, if you successfully rally, all pins are removed. Yep, that's right. All pins are removed. Whilst on the topic of morale and rallying, you can only have 11 maximum for your unit. You can't go to 12 and you can't go less than 1. So the morale will be between 2 and 11. Terrain has remained unchanged. However, they do stress that it's very important at the beginning of the game to work out what all the features you've got on your battlefield, what the terrain it is, and how it affects the game, so that there's no worrying about it later on. Now let's move on to shooting, and there has been some changes. There is no -1 to hit for long range. There are very few modifiers. There's a -1 for firing on the move, -1 for firer is pinned, as you remember what I said. Fire is inexperienced, -1, and point blank is +2. Once you've hit, we then go on to look at the result needed, and it's a basic 3+ for inexperienced, 4 for regular, 5 for veterans, 6 for soft skin vehicles. And if you damage a soft skin vehicle with a 6, it's destroyed and gone from the game. Once you've worked out how many have been damaged, you then move on to the cover save. Soft cover gives the unit a 5+, hard cover gives it a 4+. Down will give you a +2 modifier on top. If the unit is in the open and it goes down, it becomes a 5+ save. And that's it. That's your cover saves. And just to cheer you up, indirect fire, units cannot claim cover. They can, of course, go down and it's half the dice rounded up. So, much as it was in the past. So yeah, indirect fire, no cover save. Now, what about this point blank modifier? Yes, if the unit has received the +2 for point blank, then the unit cannot claim the modifier or the +2 or the 5+ for being down. So yeah, they are at the mercy of the shooting unit. Let's have a look at shooting and cover. Well, what it says is that at least 50% of the models are firing from directly behind a wall or similar obstacle, then they won't be affected by the cover. So they're shooting out over the top. Same as if they're in a wood or dense terrain. As long as they are within 1 inch of the front of that terrain, so that's 50% of the unit. If you've got a unit of 8, 3 are against the wall, 5 are not, then the target unit that they are shooting at will be in cover. And to round off this little bit of shooting, let's have a look at vehicles and MMGs and LMGs. Well, yeah, you may have read it already and seen it, that vehicle-mounted weapons fire with half the dice. So their effectiveness has dropped a little. However, some of the multi-gun tanks are still going to be putting out a reasonable number of dice. Close combat next, and a big change. All units fight simultaneous. Yep, that's right, simultaneous. Unless there is a unit which is defending behind an obstacle or in cover. Or if the attacking unit has had to cross an obstacle or rough ground. Then the defenders fight first. What you'll be wanting to take is a platoon of engineers, and that negates the defences, so it will be simultaneous once again. However, the one proviso is if the defenders are down, and if the defenders are down, the fight is simultaneous. There is a proviso. I go back to when we were talking about cover, and the defending unit must have at least 50% of the troops touching the wall to count it as an obstacle. A few more changes for HQs. Well, yep, what have we got? Well, spotters have quite an effect now. Spotters, or the forward artillery observers, mortars and any of the indirect fire weapons can use any of your spotters or FAO's line of sight. They don't have to have a dedicated one now, so they can use whichever. It is also the case that once they are targeted and zeroed in on a 2+, even if that spotter is killed, they will remain on 2+. However, if they are ranging in, and say they're on a 4+, and the spotter gets killed, that was giving them that line of sight, then the artillery fire has to change to a different unit. So yeah, spotters and FAOs will allow any of the mortars or artillery pieces to use them to fire. Quite a significant change to headquarters and officers. Officers now are in 2 groups. Your second lieutenant and your first lieutenant, they give +2 to morale, and captains and majors give +4. You can buy them as additional to your units. They also give snap 2s. So the first and second lieutenant can do snap 2 dice, and the captain and major can do 4 dice. So you can see some of the platoons being used with snap 2s, probably artillery, giving a artillery barrage. One thing they have made quite clear is that you can't snap to another officer to get them to snap 2. So you can't sort of cascade the snap 2s. So you can get the officer to move or to do an action, but to pull a dice, but you can't get them to do a snap 2 as a result of the snap 2 that you're dealing with. Reasons to be cheerful, part 2. Let's have a look at some of the unit special rules and see how they've changed. So, starting up with cavalry. Well, cavalry are much the same with the exception of cover saves. And of course, cover saves being introduced into the new rule set. What they get is a -1. So if they're in light cover, it's 6+, and if they're in heavy cover, it's 5+. No change for fanatics, that all remains the same. The next unit up, engineers. And engineers are quite useful because, as we've already spoken about cover, engineers negate defensive positions. So you may be wanting to fit some engineers into your army. However, remembering they will have their own platoon, so you'll need an officer and take the platoon, but you will also have the rifle platoon as well. So you have to have your rifle platoon to get your engineer platoon. Green troops remain the same, no changes there, but we do have something new, which is infiltrators. If the unit has no run or advance order on their dice, then they will receive a +1 cover save. As far as I can see, there's no change to motorcycles and there's no change to shirkers. What there is, however, is a reasonably big change to snipers. Snipers have the team weapons special rule. If sniper killed, the other man can take over, but they get a -1 penalty to hit, plus the -1 penalty for morale. The sniper has a +1 modifier to hit and gives no cover saves. It now does not do exceptional damage. That has been done away with. All those MMG teams and mortar teams can take a big sigh of relief. No change for tank hunters, but tough fighters has had a bit of a rewrite. The tough fighter rule is now the unit rolls the failed to damage dice. So in effect, if you have 10 damage dice and you fail with 5, you can re-roll another 5. For some reason, I missed out medics. So let's have a look at the medics special rule. Medics have had a nice little change. You can't shoot with the medic, but they can fight back in hand to hand. But the biggest difference is that the medic's order dice does not count for victory conditions. So if you are going to shoot a medic, you're not going to benefit by an order dice. Artillery is the next section to have a little look at, and there's very little changed. One thing is autocannons. It used to be in version 2 that you had to place the templates next to one another for the additional shots. However, in version 3, you just place your separate templates on the unit however you wish to. So a little bit easier on that. When shooting at infantry or artillery, you must use high explosive rather than armour piercing. So that's a little addition into the rule. Gun shields, they give cover. However, any attack that negates cover will, of course, remove that bonus. Let's have a look at vehicles now then. I don't intend to go through the reductions in point costs, but I'm going to look at the main rule changes. And the biggest one, I think, is the effect of failing your leadership test. If there's enemy to the front of the vehicle will reverse before going down. It reverses straight back a full move. That may take you off the table, so you need to be careful. If there's no enemy in the front arc, then it just goes down. As we've already had a look at, HMGs, MMGs and LMGs now fire at half their firepower dice. So for a HMG, although it's now 48 inches range, it will go from 6 shots down to 3 shots. If you're brave and lucky and you get within point blank and you have benefited from the +2 to hit, then you will get a +1 penetration. So that's a nice little bonus. So if you've been fortunate enough to hit your armoured car, your armoured vehicle, whichever type it is, then there are 2 tables that you can roll on. One is for superficial, so that's if you've matched the armour of the target vehicle, and that superficial table is now 1 to 6 instead of what it was as a combined before, and you now have a separate full damage table for your armoured vehicles as well. Soft skins are much easier to kill now. All you need to do is get a successful damage roll and soft-skinned vehicles are gone. Yep, gone. What the rules do say, though, is that wrecks, both soft-skinned and armoured, should remain on the table and count as cover. So impassable terrain and soft or hard cover, depending on what you want to do it, play it as. You can, before the game, make a decision with your opponent to just remove them, but I think it adds a bit of flavour if you've got those wrecks on the table. Transport vehicles and proximity to enemies has had a little bit of a change. So if you've got a soft skin vehicle, that will be destroyed at the end of the turn if it's closer to the enemy, as in version 2. However, if it's an armoured vehicle, you will take a leadership test. And if that leadership test is passed, the vehicle is all good. Assaulting loaded transports is basically the same, with the exception of the units fight simultaneous now, as per your close combat rules. Command vehicles, equipped with radios, give a +1 morale to itself and any other vehicle within 12 inches. However, it's not cumulative with morale bonuses. It also gives a 1 UMen Snap 2 for any vehicle within 12 inches, which could be quite nice. Some vehicles have the fast special move, which gives them a 12-inch advance and a 24-inch run. Last but not least, recce. And we know that some vehicles have get out of jail free cards, well, almost free, and they can reverse away from trouble. Now, if they're reversing, they can reverse at their advance rates, which is either 12 or 9, rather than at their half rate speed. However, some can also go at a run rate, which is pretty big. However, if a vehicle fails its leadership test, it will run back, and that could take it off the table. Obviously, vehicles can't react by going down. However, recce vehicles, which have escape reaction, can move and then go down. Change the dice to a down anyway. It's always been a bone of contention of how this works. Well, let's go through the rules as they are in version 3. An escape reaction is a normal move, advance or at run speed. They may move forward or reverse, but they must attempt to get or to improve its cover save from the attack. If it's impossible, then it must end its move further away from the attacker than when the attack is declared. In other words, it cannot be used to move closer to the attacker unless it gives the unit cover or gets it out of sight. In any case, it cannot be used to assault enemy units. Once the escape move is done, the dice is changed to advance or run. Note that vehicles escaping at advance speed cannot fire, and obviously you can't fire at run speed. When an enemy unit, which is over 6 inches away, declares an assault against a recce vehicle, and no action has been taken yet by the target vehicle, then it can either react by firing or with an escape move described above as we did, except that in the case of the vehicle must simply attempt to increase the distance from the enemy. After the escape move is done, measure the range from the assaulting unit. If the unit is out of range, the assaulting unit simply moves as fast as they can towards the assaulted vehicle. Recce vehicles cannot react with an escape if they are towing anything, and also recce vehicles cannot react with an escape to an airstrike or artillery barrage. And they can't react to indirect fire either within the rules. So can't use an escape route for that. And that more or less sums up vehicles. The last section I want to have a look at really is buildings. So let's have a quick look at the buildings. Before the game, you need to work out which ones are ruins and which ones are buildings. Ruins don't have a second floor. So if you want a second floor in the game, it's got to be a building. Otherwise, it's ground floor only. Other than that, buildings are more or less the same. Flamethrowers, however, need to have a door, window or other opening to fire through. And even if the flamethrower misses the target, roll a dice on a 4, 5 or 6, the building is set on fire. Well, I'm up to 20 odd minutes and I don't want to bore you anymore. The last section, Reasons to be Cheerful Part 3, your force composition. And I think I'll do a separate video for that. So I hope you enjoyed listening to this and found it useful. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already, because the subscriptions really help. Leave any comments below and I will respond to them in the best that I can. Hit the notification button if you aren't already so you can get the new video as soon as it comes out. And my final thoughts. Yeah, I like all the changes that I have read and seen in the book. I think it will make a nice difference to it. Check out Travis at Tabletop CP for some videos of version 3. He's putting them up now, so have a look to see how the game plays. So that's Tabletop CP, check them out.